Ariana Huffington called him the sleep whisperer. He's the secret weapon who has helped thousands of professional athletes in the NFL, NBA, and MLB unlock maximum performance. Best-selling author of The Sleep Solution, a board-certified neurologist and host of the chart-topping podcast Unplugged, Dr. Chris Winter is here, and I'm going to start this off with a question you don't want to miss. The FAM podcast starts right now.
For the first time ever, top retailers can introduce the mattress that's been locked away inside of one of America's top mattress retailers until now. Introducing Prana Sleep, the ultimate luxury mattress collection designed by lifelong sleep industry leaders who set out to create the best sleep experience imaginable at any cost. Born from decades of industry expertise and real-world retail feedback, Prana Sleep doesn't just sell mattresses, it sells satisfaction, loyalty, and premium performance. Now, Prana Sleep is awarding these unparalleled products to a select group of top-tier retailers. Proudly made in the USA, Prana Sleep mattresses are handcrafted in private factories by top-tier craftspeople, ensuring exceptional quality and detail. What sets Prana Sleep apart? 100% natural materials, luxury latex, and the only machines in the world that quilt latex directly into the top panel for a one-of-a-kind, indulgent feel. Stand out in the marketplace with a mattress line engineered for luxury and crafted for those who demand the best. Your competition will hate selling against Prana Sleep because nothing compares. Prana Sleep, bring the secret to success into your stores today. Go to pranasleep.com now to apply. Comfort without compromise. Leggett & Platt and Elite Comfort Solutions believe better sleep begins with better engineering. For decades, they powered many of the industry's most trusted bedding brands with advanced foam and component technologies. Their solutions are designed to enhance comfort, improve performance, and help products stand out in a competitive marketplace. Today, they're expanding that partnership, working directly with retailers to develop high-performance private label brands built on differentiated comfort technologies and supported by strategic marketing solutions. From product design to brand storytelling, they help their partners win. Leggett & Platt and Elite Comfort Solutions. Smarter comfort, stronger brands, success built together.
Welcome to the FAM Podcast with Mark Kinsley. This is where the best in the bedding business get even better.
Hey fam, so excited and honored to have Dr. Chris Winter here on the show. Chris, I've had this book on my shelf since 2017, The Sleep Solution. I'm so excited that you're here. Thank you so much for making time. We're going to tell people all about you, but I got to start off with one question. When it comes to sleep, when it comes to the conversations where you're helping your patients or athletes or anybody else, how often does the mattress come up, if at all?
I think it comes up quite a bit, and thank you for having me. That was a very kind introduction. I think it comes up a lot. I think it is something that is incredibly tangible that patients, clients, athletes can relate to. I think sometimes when you're looking at insomnia therapies and mindfulness and fears of do I need a CPAP or not, the mattress is sort of a safe place to land. And I guess that pun was intended. And so I think that combined with the limitless options that we are being presented with when it comes to mattresses, not to mention how other industries have leaned into it. The hotel industry, when you go to a Airbnb and you sleep on somebody's bed, you're like, wow, this is really great. Friends talking about it's just something that was a conversation piece. I mean, I grew up and slept on a mattress for years. I think it still exists in my bedroom at home. Couldn't tell you anything about it. No, so it's funny how we've gone from that thing to people knowing the mattress and the story behind how they chose it and how they customized it to them. So I think it's a big deal.
Okay, well, that's encouraging because I think for the longest time, the mattress has been seen as more a piece of furniture and not a piece of equipment that can contribute to increasing and enhancing your sleep and ultimately leading to better days and better nights. And I don't feel like the mattress has had much of a place in that conversation really up until around COVID when health and wellness became the hyper focus for so many people.
Yeah, I think it's changing. It would be great if we could get rid of those sort of political divides and be more like mattress divides, where I hate my neighbor because he's box spring and I'm, memory foam, and what an idiot for being on a and then he's saying the same thing about me with his friends. All that idiot next door with the memory foam off gassing and all this that would be a much better tribal way to divide people in the United States than silly politics. I think the
I love
bed.
this idea. Let's promote this. Like, yeah,
And
Stan
I think
over
we're I
there.
think we're just like a that's right.
He sleeps 6 hours a night and brags about it. Ugh.
Stupid Stan. He doesn't know what he's missing. Stan is making choices that are hurting himself. He doesn't even know it. No, I think that's changing. I mean, I think people are getting really into their bedroom setup, the noise machine, the mattress topper, the thing that cools the bed, adjustable base or not adjustable base, the humidification, sleeping masks, earbuds, the stripping off of the eye mask, mouth tape. I mean, it's a whole thing now. So I think that, to me, to not consider the mattress is sort of thinking about all the stickers to put on your race car, but you're not considering the engine of your race car. Is it a BMW motor? Are you going Toyota? Is it Ferrari? Everything else is just kind of window dressing, right?
You kind of broke something down that I hadn't thought about. It's almost like with all of this gear, it's Batman kitting up to go out and defend the city. There's almost like this fight that you're going into with sleep, and you're putting on all your gear and activating all your technology and getting everything in place. Do you feel that's a tension that you experience when you're talking to athletes or patients? Like, it's something they're fighting?
Yeah, and absolutely. And I think belief matters. So, do you feel comfortable going into a combat situation with a simple sidearm? It's probably not the best thing to be talking about in this current climate. Or do you feel like you need more of, rifle and things of ammunition and maybe some knives and, I don't know, throwing stars, nunchucks? I think that people do feel like they're going into something. And I think the more armed they are, it's that montage scene of your favorite action movie where the protagonist has had enough. He's going in and he goes to that thing and he opens up the closet. That's really not a closet, but it opens up and all of his guns and ammunition are there and he's loading it all up to go into battle at the very end of the movie. I think a lot of people treat sleep that way. And I think to some extent, there's a comfort in all of those things that how could my sleep be bad if I've got all this stuff going on, which is a whole other topic, I
It's
guess.
kind of concerning in a way, because whenever I think about this battle and getting geared up, you're right. I mean, I'm like campfire light, blackout blinds, making sure the dogs got their space over there, good comfortable stuff, adjustable base and 0G for 30 minutes. I want to make sure my phone's out of the bedroom. Like, it seems like there's a lot of tension around that, as opposed to how you should feel, which is, that feeling of relaxation. I'm finally here. But I guess you do have to prep, because that prep is going to create those conditions that are going to allow you to get that good sleep.
Yeah, I think it's Arnold Schwarzenegger Commando versus the little kung fu master from Kill Bill, right? He doesn't need anything. He wears a robe and he walks through this world in a very simple way because he has reached this sort of Zen level understanding of, the way combat works or maybe the way life works versus somebody else who feels like they need items and things for their comfort. He doesn't need anything. He can defeat you with his pinky, right? So I think you're exactly right. I think that maybe a more novice way of thinking about sleep is I've got to have all these things or else. But as you move through the sleep space and spend time thinking about it, there is sort of a zen to sleep, which is I'm going to find myself in a moment tonight in bed and I'm going to make myself comfortable. And if I fall asleep right away, that's awesome. And if I don't, that's awesome too. No matter what happens tonight, I'm going to be at peace with it. You can really, find your sleep that way, that in a way that doesn't require all the fun gadgets that I love to talk about and play around with. So I'm guilty of playing with them as well too. But, there's a difference between messing around with a mask and a thing over your mouth and this and that and lavender spray and being dependent upon them. I'm definitely the kung fu master when it comes to sleep, that give me a horizontal surface in a relatively dark and quiet spot. I can sleep anywhere. I mean, I just fell asleep on a plane flight from Atlanta to Florida today and passed out with no problem.
This is actually one of my hacks. Okay. Hacks are fun. I'll give you my hack. My hack is this. So I sleep with a noise machine, but the noise machine is airplane cabin noise. And so now when I get onto a plane, I'm lights out, baby.
Yes. And there's several noise machines and sort of noise canceling, or at least noise conditioning earbuds have airplane noise as one of the sounds, and it is a drug. I
Mm.
feel I fell asleep one time so fast on a plane that I woke up as we were taxiing to the gate, and I thought we had moved away from the gate, getting ready to take off, but we went back. Like, the toilet was clogged, and so they were like, "Oh, we gotta go back to the gate. Sorry, folks. We're gonna be a little delayed here." So I looked over to the woman next to me. I was like, "Oh," I said, "What's going on? Why are we going back to the gate?" She's like, "Sweetheart, we're here." Like, so we had done the entire flight, and I had slept so quickly and so deeply that I had no idea that the time had even passed. So, yeah, I'm a big fan of cabin noise.
What's the technical term for when people are about to fall asleep and their body like twitches or jerks? And is there,
Yeah. It's hypnic myoclonus, but most people call them sleep starts.
yeah. So
Very
I'm that
common when
guy.
people
So
have a kind of that rough transition from wake to sleep. So you're still sleep deprived, your sleep's been a little bit erratic because of deadlines and your work, or you got a new baby in the house or something. And yeah, for me, it's always accompanied by a dream, as it is for a lot of people, that I will nod off. And my dream is always I'm going down steps or stepping off a curb, but I kind of misstep. And now I'm tripping, I'm falling, and I jerked myself awake during the fall. One time I had a dream that somebody threw me a baseball, and I looked up and the baseball was, right about to hit me, so I wasn't gonna be able to catch it in time, and woke up. So some people have a little hallucination or a dream associated with it, but yeah, hypnic myoclonus or sleep starts,
I bring it up
generally
because
considered benign.
I actually have that happen so frequently on planes that I was going with a group of friends down to Key West and I knew I was going to sleep. And so my wife is sitting on the left and my friend gets a picture of me. And what, what I do, because I know this is going to happen, I'm going to knock somebody out. I actually take my arms and I put them in the seatbelt and I strap myself in so that I'm restrained
Yeah.
because I know I'm going to start throwing left hooks and right crosses if I don't do it because it's happened so many times. So my friend gets
Absolutely,
a
because
picture of me.
the paralysis that you experience often when you sleep hasn't quite caught up with you at that point. So to put an arm up like you're going to catch a ball or defend yourself, from falling off a stair, you could easily hit somebody. We got one lecture in medical school on sleep. So for the 4 years I was there, Emory Medical School back in the late 90s determined that all we needed was about 60 minutes of sleep education. We would be good to tackle the sleep woes of America. And one of the episodes was a guy who had kind of lashed out in his sleep and punched his wife. And so this little elderly couple was sitting there and she had a black eye and he was pretty upset about the whole situation. But because he had dreamt like a deer was jumping out at him and he was trying to push the deer back and ended up hitting his wife. So I like the restraint. I like being kind of tied in, kind of bound in a little bit when I sleep. I think that feels good. A lot of people with a restless leg feel that way. So, sometimes I will put my arm in the seat belt just to kind of keep myself sort of situated and not flopping around when I'm flying on an airplane. I think that's
Yeah,
probably
I
a
made
good
the
idea.
mistake one time though of putting both of my hands underneath my thighs because
Yeah.
that's how I was gonna keep myself restrained. I was like, it looks a little weird when the man next to you is seat belting himself in. And so I get up from that position. I'd fallen asleep. And for the next week and a half, I had barely any use of my left hand.
Wow.
I
So you
had
had like a little
the
temporary nerve palsy. So I'm a
yeah,
neurologist. That's my background or portal into sleep. Yeah.
yeah, I couldn't
So
open my hand. It was closed and I couldn't open my hand. Luckily my friend, he's
yeah.
a doctor in the neighborhood. I went over, I was like, "Steve," and he looked at me, kind of checked me over and he goes, "I have to say, this is strange."
Yeah, yeah, no, that's you probably like a little there's a couple famous ones, like people falling asleep with their arm over a bench, had a name, like Saturday night palsy, like you would get drunk and sit down on a bench with your arm over it and then fall asleep and pass out, and that pressure on the nerve, that crossed over right there at your elbow would be long enough that you would kind of temporarily stun it, and it would take a little while for that to come back. So, yeah, it sounds like that's what you've got.
Talking to Dr. Chris Winter, neurologist. author of The Sleep Solution. Chris, okay, so we're talking about devices and gadgets and strapping ourselves in planes and hacks and tips and tricks. What's your state of the state on wearable devices and sleep tracking and how that's impacting the average person, where this world is going?
Yeah, I mean, that's been a lot of fun. I mean, my career has sort of seen the beginning of all that stuff, the first Fitbits and the Jawbone and the Basis Band and the original Zeo headband and some really cool, it was like technology that outpaced explanation, which was sort of the Achilles of some of those earlier iterations. It was like me marketing your own MRI for your bedroom. Here's an MRI, you can buy it yourself, but there's no explanation for what the pictures mean. You can just take a really cool picture of your pancreas, but you have no, like, here's my pancreas, I think, but I don't know what this means. So a lot of the earliest technology was fairly good, but nobody really knew what to do with it. And so now the explanation, the guidance, the coaching has really caught up, as has the accuracy of the trackers. I mean, I think back to, I mean, I'm so old now that like the pulse oximeter, I remember doing research when I was an undergrad student. This would have been in the early 90s in sleep, where the doctor I was working for said, here's the pulse oximeter. You can take it down to the lab. Just be very careful with it. Because I remember him saying something like, you don't have enough money to buy a new one. And now you can buy a pulse ox like $20 on Amazon, it clips right to your finger. You can wear it all night. It's in every device we have. So the technology leaps and bounds are incredible. I'm a big fan of trackers. I think as long as people understand that the accuracy of the measurements aren't perfect, but they're pretty good. And yeah, so they may not rival a sleep study, meaning that which is more accurate, the thing on your wrist or your finger or an in-lab sleep study? Well, an in-lab sleep study is more accurate, but nobody does 30 in-lab sleep studies in a row. That device that's embedded in your bed or your mattress or on your finger, your wrist, your head, wherever, you're getting data about your sleep every night. So night to night comparisons, whatever, but the longitudinal data that you can get with these devices is really good. And I tell people all the time, accurate or not, if you've been wearing something and tracking your sleep and you get frowny face every day, from your device saying your sleep's not good, and frowny face, terrible score, red line, I would believe it. I mean, these devices will be as accurate as in-lab sleep studies easily within my lifetime. So a lot of the pushback that I hear from my colleagues, I think is genuine pushback that, hey, these things aren't perfect. Be careful. There's some wiggle room here. But I also think the pushback is, damn, these things are so good now. What am I going to be doing in 10 years when this thing can do what my sleep center does at a whole lot less money and a lot easier? So I think there's probably a little bit of survival concern here where the wristwatch is going to do everything that Dr. Winter does, which I don't think would be that hard for a wristwatch to mimic what I do, but we'll see.
And I'm sure AI has come up in this conversation a bunch. I mean, because you're
Yeah.
able to synthesize so much information and make it meaningful and look at all these different profiles that might fit that person. Like, what are you seeing inside the closed rooms around sleep
Yeah.
studies and AI and where that's headed?
I think AI is great. It's again, it's something else. It's to me, it's like the wearables. It's let's embrace it and work with it and understand it because it's a very powerful tool. It's radically changed the way I research and organize things and look into things. It's so much faster than typical searches. It's very much learns tendencies and understands the things that I care about and the things that I don't. I do a lot of work with professional sports organizations and just so I would sit down with, every player with the Cleveland Guardians over a 6-day period. We'll do 200 assessments of sleep. So I end up with this massive spreadsheet of data, but I want to create something that I can give to that player that's not a bunch of numbers and is a bit more interpretive. And so instead of the unbelievably labor intensive kinds of things I used to do in the past, I can say to it, if a player has this score to this score, this is what I would say about it. And it really allows you to cut out a lot of that kind of legwork and really spend your time being a lot more creative and tailoring in your report, and all the rote stuff just kind of going away. I think it's incredible. I think it's just kind of transformative in terms of the way we do things now. And I was God, we were doing something the other day with AI, and it was just fascinating its ability to generate so much. I don't think it's really doing things that I wouldn't do, and I see mistakes with it all the time. I My podcast, we always talk about music, and even just the other day, it was talking about how I'd asked it a question about Joe Jackson, because we always pick a song that has a lyric that's germane to the topic of our podcast, and I've always liked this album Night and Day, and when I was asking it a question, it came up and said side A of the album is day and side B is night. I said it's actually not. It's night and day, and the AI is like, oh yes, you're right. So it makes stuff up all the time. So, to me, it's a great tool, but you've got to be on top of it. Otherwise, it can go in some weird directions. It just and I love having these conversations with it. Why did you make up that this artist wrote this song? Because they didn't. Where did you get this? I'm curious how this came into whatever your mind meld is going on. So anyway, I think it's wonderful. Anybody who's not embracing AI, I think is crazy.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I've been teaching mattress and retail people and others across the board for several years now about using AI, applying AI thinking. But one of the things that I harp on is number one, becoming a good prompt boss. Like you're the
Yes,
boss,
yes.
talk to it like a human. And a boss doesn't say, hey, this is great work done. You review the work, you refine your instructions back if they got it wrong. So the human in the loop is definitely necessary because there's tons of hallucination still.
It
It happens
really
all the time.
is. And not to get into an AI discussion, but I do find this quite fascinating. Why did you hallucinate that? That seems like the easy part. Do you know what I mean? Like, ever give it like a prompt to like, can you generate a picture of an arm with a lot of different wearables on it and write the word wearable? And it gets the perfect picture and all these great, and it misspells wearable. Well, number
Right.
one, I just told you to say wearable. Just copy my letters. You don't even have to think like, why did you misspell wearable? What a
It's
weird
almost
mistake
like
to
it's
make.
always trying to create something original.
Yes, correct. Yeah, and the word wearable is too mundane. It needs something better, so it's gonna leave out the middle R. Okay, wearable. So, yes, you definitely I like your AI boss. I think that's a really, really good one, and it is a skill. It's a skill to learn kinda how to speak its language and get it to produce the things that you want to. Yeah, I had to finally tell it, "Please stop bolding words and putting emojis in it. I don't want that. That's not at all how I think and like to read in text." And so it to its credit, it figures it all out pretty quickly. And I will say this, it's way too complimentary, which drives me a little crazy. Like, I like criticism. I was just talking the other day about somebody. I said, the older you get, the less people criticize you. So I'm one of my favorite things to get is sort of intelligent pushback about something I've said in my podcast. I love that because without it, you don't learn and you don't grow. You're just in a bubble and well, don't say anything to Dr. Winter. He gets real mad if you correct him or whatever. No, I couldn't be I'm the opposite. But AI has not gotten that message. It's like, what a brilliant thought. I'm like, is it? I just asked you what the weather was. Like, I think it's really brilliant. I was just curious what the weather was in Burlington, Vermont. But okay, stop
Yeah,
saying
it
that.
tells me sometimes now, Kinsley, you're onto something game changing. And I'm like, I I just wanted a simple workout for the day.
Oh, I love it. Yes, exactly.
Hey, speaking
That's
of
funny.
game changing though, we were talking about athletes. They play games. They play at a super high level. And you've done a ton of work with like the Oklahoma City Thunder, for example. Even in your background, you have the championship um, ring plaque. That's super cool. So you've worked with that team for what, like 16 years?
I think 16 so they moved from Seattle to Oklahoma City, and it was during that first season that I started working with them. And the funny thing is, this is how disconnected I am with sports is they called and left a message. Hey, this is, Don from the Oklahoma City Thunder. We'd love for you to, help us out with some things sleep related with our team. And I thought it was a joke because I remember that Will Ferrell movie. I think it was like Tropic Thunder. It wasn't Tropic Thunder. It was about it's about a semi-pro basketball league.
Oh, yeah, yeah, I know what
Remember
you're
that?
talking about. Mhm.
Um, and anyway, I just thought it was some like med school buddies playing a joke on me or something like that. So I never called him back. And then at some point, my older son said something about Kevin Durant and the Thunder. I said, "What is the Thunder?" He said, "The Oklahoma City Thunder. The Seattle Seahawks are now the Oklahoma City Thunder. They moved the entire organization to Oklahoma City." And I'm like frantically going through my phone trying to find that message and call them
Don,
back
Don,
once I
Don, where's
realized, yeah,
Don?
Don, exactly. But yeah, they didn't seem to miss a beat.
All right, so let's dig in because that's enough time to see how things are changing with young athletes, and most of them are younger men. They're
Yeah,
younger
yeah, yeah,
athletes.
yeah, yeah,
What
yeah.
what have you noticed about sleep patterns, the way people think about sleep, just the individuals themselves, maybe thematically, some of the challenges, or some of the themes that you've noticed just around the way that they perform, look at sleep, what you're training and teaching now versus 16 years ago?
Yeah, I mean, I remember 16 years ago, I was fairly impressed already that when I went to work with the Thunder, that was the first NBA team I believe I'd ever worked with. I was pretty impressed by how seriously they took it. I kind of had this idea that I was going to come in and they were going to say, "We like staying up late and playing video games." And I was going to be like, "Well, that's fun, guys. But if you want to be a really good basketball team, you need to be, like," and they really weren't. They were already pretty on top of their sleep. In fact, I'll never forget talking to Kevin Ollie, who was towards the end of his career. I think that might have been the last season he played in the NBA was with the Thunder. Now he went on to coach at UConn and won a national championship. And I remember sitting down with him saying, "Hi, hey, I'm Chris. Thunder's new sleep specialist, and tell me more about your sleep." And he's like, "Well, I live in a very quiet apartment complex, and I'm usually in bed by 9 o'clock, and my neighbors know to keep the music down, and I really like to make sure that I get all my food in before I go." I mean, like when he was done talking, answering that question, I was kind of like, "All right, well, I've got nothing for you because you're already a perfect sleep." Like, it's kind of like, man, you should be doing this job because people they'll trust you more than me. Like you're like this basketball player who's already his own sleep expert. So over the years, I've always been really impressed with athletes. I think what's happened over the last 16 years is it's just kind of accelerated. We've gone through the phases like you were talking about of wearables where leagues were suspicious and players were suspicious. I remember a hockey player for the Rangers, the New York Rangers, asking me, he was like, because the club wanted them to wear wearables. And he was like, "Does this thing, can it tell you if I go to a strip club?" That was pretty great. Strip club alert. Your player is in a strip club, like you're logging on your computer, getting alerts. And I was like, "Nah, I can't really do any of that stuff. It'll tell you that you're awake or asleep in the strip club." And I said, "If you're sleeping in the strip club, is it really worth going to the strip club?" Which he thought was pretty funny. So I think that we've gone from a lot of athlete pushback, player union pushback, like they're going to use the sleep data against you in arbitration or something like, to players like they're wearing their own sleep trackers now. I'll sit down with a young player right out of high school, and the first thing they'll be like, "Hey, what do you think about my data?" And like they're putting their Whoop band data right in your face, and so they're interested in it. And there's sort of an arms race mentality, kind of what we were talking about at the beginning, that if I bring a sleep tracker, everybody brings the sleep tracker. And then I've got the little Muse headband, and I've got the blue light glasses. So there definitely is a mentality in a locker room of, "Hey, what's that thing you got on right there?" "Oh, it's these little glasses that shine a light back in my eyes and kind of wake me up and get me ready to be more awake." "Oh, okay." And then, 20 minutes later, it's in their Amazon cart kind of thing. So I think athletes really buy into this stuff, which was the whole reason I was kind of interested. I thought, if athletes buy into sleep and that becomes a public thing, it'll just make my life a whole lot easier versus, telling a 16-year-old in my clinic, "Hey, man, you got to get more sleep." They're like, "Oh, screw off, old man. I don't care about you." But if, Kevin Durant or Tom Brady or Lindsey Vaughn or somebody's talking about sleep, like they're all over that kind of thing. Like, "Oh, okay, well, if Kevin Durant says it's cool, then I'm definitely going to try to get more sleep." So I think athletes, almost more than any population of people, have been single-handedly responsible for making sleep really cool. Like the thing that you do. If you're a 10-year-old playing travel soccer and you want to be like, you know, Mia Hamm or some awesome soccer player for the United States women's soccer team. Like you've got to sleep. So anyway,
That's good. It seems like, okay, that message has found its hooks in professional athletes. And like you said, it's not going to be the sleep industry coming in from the outside. It's going to be them kind of creating that narrative and getting buy-in. And it's going to, just like anything else spreads these days, it's going to come from
yeah,
the influencers. Like, and the influencers are,
absolutely. No, it's good. Like it or don't like it, learn to love it, as Ric Flair said, because it's the only thing going today. Because yeah, I mean, I think about Tom Nichols' book, The Death of Expertise. It's not, my voice is diminished. It's not. Nobody really cares. It's the influencer, it's the celebrity, it's the person with millions and millions of followers. So if that person is talking about sleep in positive ways, which they typically do, like I don't, we give social media a hard time, but I don't see a lot of data on social media that's bad. Hey, this is the best tequila for your sleep. Like I haven't seen that post, like, so usually it's pretty decent data that's, everybody's heard it before, but at least they're talking about positive things. And if that's the way an individual's coming to better sleep ideas or just thinking more about sleep, then so be it. That's okay. I never
the
wanted to
best.
be famous. I want to be rich, but I never wanted to be famous. So that's perfectly fine with me.
That's what Bill Murray said. He said, if if you want to know what it's like to be rich and famous, try being rich first.
I like that. It's great. That is fantastic.
You've got a, if you're watching on YouTube or even on Spotify where we put the videos, you could see the Navy sweatshirt right here. So just before we recorded this podcast, you had a really nice surprise from your son, who's a naval aviator. Also, tell us about that surprise. And I also want to talk about your work with the military.
Yeah, so my middle child, oldest son, is a naval aviator. And yesterday, when I was on a plane getting ready to fly to Atlanta, he wrote me and said, I'm going to fly from Pensacola Air Station to Sarasota, where we live, and land at the airport, which is very close to where I live down here, very close to where my wife works at the Ringling Art Museum. And he said, I'm going to fly in and surprise you guys. And so I was up in Chattanooga last night, like early. I landed at Sarasota Airport at 9:30 and saw on this little tracker app that he gave me so I could follow this little military airplane around that he was flying around in St. Petersburg. So I dashed home, got my car, drove out to this little observation area of the airport, and it was really cool because his grandmother lives nearby, so I was able to grab her really fast and bring her, so she got to see him. Unfortunately, his grandfather passed away and would have loved that. But the other cool thing was they had a speaker in this observational area, and you could hear the people talking to the tower. And so all of a sudden, I could hear my son. And he's like, Red Knight 117 requesting blah blah blah, and then this little military naval airplane landed, and we got to go have lunch at this little Cuban place that I love, and then he just flew away. And the whole time I was like, oh my God, this podcast. I don't know exactly when he's going to leave. I want to watch him leave. And it was literally perfect. He took off. I dashed back home, and here we are. So it was a really, really, really cool surprise. And I got to
What a
see his
fun,
plane and look inside of it. And it was fun.
oh, he must be proud. What a fun experience. And
Yeah, it
so
was really cool.
your son's in the military, and you as a sleep doctor, you've worked with the military, which, even just the normal person out there is aware, I think, for the most part, that you're sleeping when you're in combat, especially in combat zones or deployed, you're sleeping a lot of times in conditions that aren't ideal or super stressful. And then there's the people that come back home, and there's combat related PTSD and just reintegration. What has been your experience working with the military, especially in relation to sleep?
It's been awesome. I've gotten to do that in a lot of different capacities. I've done a lot of work with special forces. So there's organizations that will sponsor these retreats for um, special ops soldiers and military personnel, that when they come back from their deployments, they get their entire families together, take them to a really cool place, some sort of resort or amusement park. They rent the whole thing out for the families. And then, so it's lots of fun, family bonding, but then also classes. Here is a class for creating more connection and intimacy with your partner since you've been gone for a year and a half and stuck your partner with their 4 kids. Here's a class on sleep, and because a lot of them struggle with their sleep, or now that they were gone, all the kids were sleeping in bed with the other partner, and we got to get the kids back in the bedroom because now you're messing up intimacy between the two. So there's all kinds of really sleep issues that go along with that. My favorite one, I got to speak to the Navy, some of their highest level officers in the Navy, and I was communicating with this guy, and at some point he said, we've got a lot of speakers or whatever. And I said, well, that's good. I said, but I'm going to tell you this, my talk's going to be the best talk of the entire weekend. He said, "Yeah, that's pretty big statement because we've got some heavy hitters." I said, well, listen, when I'm done with my talk, you come up on stage and you can say to everybody there that I delivered or that I came up short. I said, I got thick skin. You tell me whatever you want. So he wrote me this letter at the end of it, he goes, I thought you were so full of it, but that was one of the best talks ever. It was just the funniest letter I've ever gotten in my life. And so anyway, I find the military just to be so much fun to work with, and they're great. I actually got to give a lecture to some Air Force people too. And as we were going back and forth and figuring out travel and all this stuff, and I kept referring to myself as Sandman because the guy that I was talking to, his call sign was Catch. So, Maverick and Goose and Catch and Cougar or whatever, So he kept, and he's like, what's Sandman? I said, Sandman's my call sign. And so that's been like a joke now forever, is like whenever they communicate with me, they're like, Sandman, we have another mission for, or whatever. So anyway, I'm the only non-flying 53-year-old sleep doctor with his own call sign, which I think is really, really
All right, I love
that I
that,
gave
Sandman.
myself. And you don't give yourself a call sign, particularly in the Navy. And that's something I learned in the Air Force. I think you get to pick your own, or they kind of help you pick you one and pick your one. But it's nobody in the Navy. They pick the worst thing, something that really brings you down a couple pegs, embarrasses you. So if you ever encounter a naval aviator, not a pilot, pilots pilot ships, which I just learned about not too long ago. So naval aviator, they're asking what their call sign is and why they have it. It's always an amazingly crazy, funny story.
Does your son have his call sign yet?
No, I call him Bottom Gun. I probably shouldn't say that on the podcast, but he didn't like that. I'm like, there's Top Gun and then there's you, Bottom Gun. So no, but so when he's he's almost to the point, I think, I can't remember if you get your call sign at the end of your T6 training or the next rotation of his training. I can't remember. So no call sign yet, but one time I got to speak to one of his superiors for some random reason. I was like, well, here's my phone number. So when you're ready to try to figure out a call sign for my son, just give me a call. I said, I got some ideas of some truly horrifically embarrassing stories from his past that might be of interest to you.
We'll have to
And
have you come
they're
back.
free. That's the kind of father I am.
I give freely for my
I
son.
give freely to my son. Yes.
Just to take him down a notch.
That's
just
right.
a couple of pegs.
That's right.
Maybe he'll come back on the show when he gets his call sign and we'll get updated from the Sandman.
I would be happy. Sandman, this is Sandman reporting. Yes, I'd be happy to do that. It'd be great.
That's what, dude. Now, when you deal with military folks, and is it unique what they're dealing with to actually get from a place of suffering from poor sleep to, hey, I really turned a corner?
Yeah, I found a lot of similarities with military and sports. In fact, I have a theory that when I walk in and start talking to a sports team, it takes them 3 years to believe anything that comes out of my mouth because I'm short. I'm clearly not an ex-football player or whatever, and I'm clearly not military. When a military person, because I've been there actually, when I'm with a sports group and maybe a couple Navy SEALs come to like tour around the training facility of the Toronto Blue Jays, there's an immediate respect there, both ways. I respect you because, man, you can hit a curveball. I respect you because you take out terrorists or whatever. Nobody respects me at all. So you gotta earn it after a while. So I think there's a lot of similarities in those two communities that they're performing at a very high level. A lot is on the line. Now, obviously, probably a little bit more on the line for the military than the baseball player, but it's still really high stakes. And they're both communities that value performance. What can we do to make that aviator a better aviator, that operator a better operator, both professionally, but also recovery wise, like, and that's a big thing. Like, I mean, one time my son told me the amount of money that has probably been invested in his education and flying at this point by our tax money, and it's tremendous. So there is a lot. It's the same thing of going out and buying a free agent center fielder. You've put a lot of money into that person. You want to get the most out of that person you can. So injury, burnout, mistakes, whatever, they really they'll do about anything to minimize that. So what can they do for a pilot? What can you do for a center fielder? Eat better, train better, condition your mind better, sleep better. Those are about the only four variables you can really change. Better airplane, like smarter airplane, sure. Better bat, great. But like, what can the actual individual do? It's really all about sleep, both in terms of how will you perform on the flight today, but how are you looking 12 years from now? You still serviceable, or are you just kind of a healthcare disaster at this point, and we've got to move on, and the investment's over, kind of thing. So I think sleep plays a really central role there, and not something that maybe the military is famous for. Like, man, some of those Naval Academy stories my son gave me, like, what the like, at one point he said, somebody found out you were a sleep doctor, they want to have you come up to the Naval Academy and do a lecture. I'm like, no. I said, what am I gonna do? Like, you all should sleep more, less stress, more mindfulness. Y'all meditate. Like, I mean, come on. Like, it's like residency, it's like the pit. You can't, unless you're going to radically change things, I'm just going to say a bunch of stuff that you guys are never going to be able to do. The commandant has said from now on, we're all sleeping 9 hours and we have Saturdays off. Like, no, that's never going to happen. So I'm just going to tell you a whole bunch of stuff. You're like, oh, that's interesting, but that's not our world. Okay, goodbye. Now somebody's back to yelling at us again.
I've heard different tips and tricks and TikToks and YouTube shorts and Instagram, this and that's about military tricks for getting to sleep. What's your take?
Oh, those are some of my favorite articles. I was literally just reading one today, and I mean, God bless her soul. This writer was, I mean, she was looking for a Pulitzer. It was like the military didn't know what to do. They needed something that worked quickly for all soldiers, and they found it by the military. It was just, I don't know. Yeah, they talk about the military breathing, like you lie down on the ground, put your feet up on a chair, and count backwards from 9. I haven't met a lot of military people that struggle with sleep, because it's one of those things where, in fact, I always tell people, if you want to sleep better, make your life a little bit more military, in the sense that go to bed tonight, sleep or don't sleep. Somebody's yelling at you at 5:30 in the morning with a bullhorn and having you run around a field and do pull-ups until you puke, and there's no opportunity for you to sleep the rest of the day until they put you back into that barracks around midnight the next night. I mean, I think these soldiers and cadets and midshipmen are probably anxious to beat the band, but man, when they get horizontal, they're asleep fast. I remember one time, a lot of times the athletes at the Naval Academy, there's soldiers and midshipmen and all this good stuff until they go to their sport. So when they're in like the football locker room, it's kind of a no military space. So nobody's yelling at you and making you do push-ups. You're just kind of a normal person. My son swam at the Naval Academy, so he'd go to the swimming center and just live there because nobody's yelling at you. It's kind of like when you're playing tag, that's base. You can't mess with me when I'm on base. And people would sleep in their lockers. They'd sleep on study tables and stuff like that because they were out from under the eye of their superiors and whatnot. I think military people sleep pretty well. Those little military tips, there's nothing wrong with them, but these articles make them seem like there's some sort of, everything's all distraction, right? It's sort of count backwards, count sheep. Think about a red balloon that's floating into a blue sky. Then you think about a cloud. Then an airplane flies by. And you think about the pilot, the pilot's hat. The hat has wings, and birds have wings. So you just let one thought go to the next one, or there's all kinds of little methods like that. I just talked to a guy who does a thing called Wiki Sleep, and his model is, I'm going to pick an interesting, but not too interesting article, like on Martin Van Buren. And I'm going to read the article from Wikipedia, just word for word. And if you have trouble sleeping, you just put your headphones on and you select the WikiSleep app and you sit there and listen to the life and times of Martin Van Buren until you fall asleep. What could be better?
This happens to me. Something we were talking about planes earlier. And sometimes I'll be listening to a podcast or an audiobook and I'm like, I listened to an hour and a half of this audiobook and have no recollection of it, but it was soothing enough where it
Yeah.
bored me to
Yeah.
tears or
Yeah.
to sleep, either
I
one.
used to tell people that all the time. Like, I've written 2 books. Both of them have audiobook components. I'm like, listen to my audiobook. Either you're going to educate yourself about sleep. And I believe that the more educated you are about sleep, wherever you get that education, the less scary it is. The more we understand something, the less scary that thing becomes. So it's either going to educate you, you'll feel less stressed about your sleep and probably sleep better, or listening to me talk about sleep on this audiobook will be so boring, it'll put you to sleep. So either way, you're going to win. Like, you can't lose by listening to that audiobook.
And is it on Audible and Spotify and
It
all those
is,
different
yeah.
places?
I'll tell you a funny story.
It's the
They
sleep solution, by the way.
Yeah,
See, I'm
so
holding it up on
so
camera.
the sleep solution in my second book is called The Rested Child. So if you have kids, it's more about kids and sleep. But when when the sleep solution came out, my agent called me and said, "Hey, we're going to send you some voices of people who are going to read your audiobook, and you can, put your vote in or who you like." And I said, "What? Could I do it?" And he paused for a minute. He's like, "Well, 2 things. Number 1, if they don't like your voice, no. And number 2, he said, Chris, it's more work than you think it would be." So they heard my voice and they said it's fine, even though I think I've got a funny kind of lisp when I say ch sounds and sh sounds. I had an amazing producer who taught me little tricks to minimize that. Anyway, but I love the work. I thought it was great. In fact, the director at one point said, "Dear God, you just read like 20 minutes without pausing or making a mistake." And I said, "Yeah, I used to do that when I would read to my kids when they were little. I would pretend like it was like a lecture on TV or something. I was performing it. So I would try to read without making mistakes. I don't know why I used to do that, but I would always practice reading Goodnight Moon perfectly. Good night," said the little woman with the clock in the house. I would prefer, and so they were like, "Dear God, like, we've just rolled through 12 pages and you haven't stopped." They would stop me because they're like, usually somebody will make a mistake and we wind it back, but you just go and go and go. So anyway,
Chris, take a breath, man.
take
Take
a
a breath
breath,
here.
man. Yeah,
Take a
exactly.
drink. Okay, so we're talking about sleep tips earlier in your book, The Sleep Solution, and the other one's called The Rested Child. Rested
The
Child?
Rested
What
Child: Why Your Tired, Wired, or Irritable Child May Have a Sleep Disorder and How to Help. It
Okay,
was
let's go.
originally part of the first book, but they said this is too long, because I wrote it. It's a long story, but I would just always write little thoughts and things about sleep, and eventually became a massive document. Somebody called me up and said, "Hey, you should write a book about sleep." I sent them the document. And they're like, "Dear God, this is a book." And they sold it to Penguin. But Penguin said, "This is great, but you've got to heavily edit it. We can't, this would be like an encyclopedia." So I took everything about young people out of it. And I also took menopause out of it. I had a thing about menopause, and I was like, nobody wants to hear about menopause from a 40-year-old white guy. That's not good. And so I took all that out, and that's a huge mistake. There are people all the time like, "Why didn't you write about menopause? And menopause is affecting sleep." I'm like, "I did, but they recommended I take it out." So anyway, that's why it's not there. So anyway,
So in your book, let's say that you have one chance to have one conversation and give one tip to somebody who's like, you have to know if they're suffering from bad sleep or not, but one tip or one habit that you only get one leave behind to put that person on a good path toward better sleep. Let's do it. Let's do it 2 ways: for the adult and then for the parent of a child.
no, it's good. I think for the adult, the leave behind would be, it's impossible not to sleep. So if you're in the mindset of thinking that you don't sleep or you can't sleep, get out of that mindset, because it's never true. It doesn't exist in nature. So the leave behind to me would be, the secret to amazing sleep is being in bed and out of bed at a consistent time every day or night or whatever, and being equally happy during that time you're in bed, whether you're awake or you're asleep. When you
Mm.
get to that point, I think you're the Kill Bill little kung fu master guy. Like, I'm going to go to bed at night, probably around 11:30. I will be out of bed probably around 7:30 tomorrow, maybe 7. I'll either fall asleep at 11:30 or I don't fall asleep at 11:30. Maybe tonight I won't fall asleep. I'm so excited about naval aircraft flying around and podcasts and all kinds of good stuff that sleep doesn't happen right away. Kind of like lunch doesn't happen sometimes. I'm not hungry for lunch. I don't need it. So if that happens tonight, I love being in bed awake. I have no problem with that. And I'm going to get up tomorrow at 7:30, whether I sleep great or have a little trouble sleeping, and I don't care. So there's lots of ways you can get at me. You can make me anxious or make me angry or make me frustrated. Being in bed awake is not one of them. So if you can cultivate a life where you just control what you can control, which is your bed and wake time. I'm going to make sure I'm in bed around 11, 11:30, be up 7:30, 8, somewhere in there. Now you've controlled that. Let the rest go. The rest of it doesn't matter. You've put food in your pantry in your refrigerator. You can control that. Can't control when you're going to eat it. Are you hungry right now? Then go get something to eat. If you're not hungry, then don't eat. It's fine. So we have these weird expectations of sleep that we don't have with anything else. That would be my leave behind for an adult. For kids, I think that the leave behind I would give a parent is your kids, no matter how old they are right now, are listening to you and observing you, and your language and attitude about sleep is creating their future sleep. So if your kid says, if your kid is constantly hearing you say, oh, another night where I couldn't sleep and the pills didn't work and the melatonin didn't work, they will pick up on that. So you can create little good sleepers in your house. And it starts with, hey, sleep's automatic. It'll come. I don't know when it'll come. It might not come right away tonight, but you've got some Junie B. Jones books and some interesting football cards that you like to look at or some art supplies. So all you can do is go to bed when you feel sleepy. And if sleep happens, great. If it doesn't, then look at a Junie B. Jones book. So we told our kids when they're about 6 years old, you need to be in your bedroom at this time, but I don't care when you go to sleep. You go to sleep whenever you want to, but I'm going to wake you up at the same time every day. So giving kids this understanding of value sleep, but don't fear it when it doesn't happen properly is a real gift you can give a child, where they understand that sleep isn't perfect every night. It's not supposed to be. But if we stress over that or we lament it, if you don't turn that light out and put that comic book away, you're in big trouble, mister, or you're going to fail your exam, or you're not going to make the basketball team. Like if that's the kind of stress and language we're putting around sleep right now, often coming from a good place. I don't want my kid to be up to, he's 8 years old. It's almost 11 o'clock. He's still awake reading a book. Let him read a book. Just make sure he's up at 7 o'clock tomorrow to get to school. And if he's tired, you can say, well, you probably are a little tired because you were up reading that comic book, which I can understand because that's a pretty interesting comic book. But maybe you'll go to bed a little bit earlier tonight and get a little bit more sleep if you feel like it. Like just being a little bit more hands off, because there was a great study one time where they took kids to a dining hall full of all kinds of foods, healthy foods, junk foods, desserts, roast beef, God, every celery, it had it all. And the parents would drop the kids off and leave. And the kids' responsibility is to go eat and then meet your parent, and that's it. Then you come back for lunch, come back for dinner. And I think they did it for like a week or something. So the kid was in complete control of what they ate. And every kid initially just ate dessert. And then after a while, a couple days or whatever, they would start balancing their diet. They didn't have to be told. The cherry pie was still sitting right there and the brownie was still right there. They naturally just gravitated towards doing the right thing. And I think about that study a lot as it pertains to sleep, that sure, kid gets a new Iron Man comic book and they stay up reading it all night, whatever. But they're not going to do that, a lot outside of video games and phones. We had a rule in our family that phones and video games, stuff like that did not live in the bedroom. There was none of that in the bedroom. But, if you've got a kid who's like, my kid's reading so much Junie B. Jones books and Magic Treehouse books that they're not getting enough sleep, like you probably got some sort of genius on your hand. That's not what's going to happen. They're going to do exactly what you did with the podcast and fall asleep with the book on their head, which is perfectly fine.
It's almost like a relieving piece of advice as I hear it, both for, adults and for kids. It's like taking away the tension and the stress and sort of the fighting that we talked about. We're not getting geared up to go into some sort of a battle. We're going to bed and I'm going to be happy either way. I remember hearing about the advent of electric light and how before that people had the first and second sleep, and that study's been reproduced. And so I always tell people, if you wake up in the middle of the night, this is most of human history coming into play. So, people get up. They used to go to the neighbor's house, check on the animals, make love, whatever it might be. And they were up for about an hour or so. And then they went back to bed until the sun came up. And so it shouldn't create stress. It should create that mentality like you talked about. Like, I'm going to be happy either way. I'm going to get in bed at this time. I'm getting up at this time. But in between, I'm going to be all smiles for miles if I need to be.
That's a great, I mean, yeah, if you ever need a good guest, if you can get him, Roger Eckerk wrote that book that you're referring to, A Day's Close, A Journey in the Night's Past. He's a fantastic lecturer and really interesting guy. But yeah, I mean, there's a push and pull here as there is with anything in the universe, which is Matt Walker, who's a brilliant, brilliant sleep researcher, and his book has probably sold 50 copies for every one that mine sold. And it's a wonderful treatise as to if you're listening to this podcast and thinking, oh, sleep's for the birds, I'll sleep when I'm dead, and nothing caffeine can't fix, you should read his book because some people need a little fear put into them because they're being too cavalier about something that is intimately associated with good health. But there are a lot of people who are on the other end of the spectrum who are kind of terrified of doing something wrong tonight or being up a little bit later than they should be because they read a study that if you don't get enough sleep, you're going to get dementia. So I do think we have to treat ourselves with a little bit of care and grace that ask me how many people in my career can't sleep. Zero. Like everybody's sleeping. And that's one of the nice things about fitness trackers is if you really think you're sleeping an hour every night, if you're lucky, look at what your fitness tracker says. Believe me, your fitness tracker's right when it says, no, you're sleeping 5 to 6 hours every night. So we do. So it's just about finessing our sleep and making it a little bit better than it was before. Big changes, big fears of things that we need. No, we need to treat ourselves a little bit more kindly than that. That sleep to some extent is like breathing and blinking. We have some control over it, but if you forget about both of those things, you blink and breathe just fine. That's why I love that book that came out not too long ago, Breath or something like that. It's how important breath work and breathing through your nose and out through your mouth and mouth tape and all this stuff was. And I really thought about sending my agent a book idea called Blinking, The Lost Art of Blinking, and how we're blinking all wrong and we need to be blinking much faster, much slower than and seeing if you bought that joke. But yeah, I mean, just there's certain things: water, food, oxygen, sleep that nobody's doing without those things, voluntarily anyway. So having confidence in our sleep and understanding that the range of control we have over this is actually very small. A little adjustment here or there, but I can't sleep and I need to buy something on Amazon that makes me sleep. No, you need to do a little bit more digging in terms of educating yourself about sleep so you understand what the real problem is.
And then once you get that education, it's about action.
Yeah,
Don't leave that
absolutely.
education sitting in your melon.
That's correct. And listen, I'll be the first to tell you that I was on the other end of the spectrum for a lot of my life, which was I can stay up all night and do this thing and be okay tomorrow in the clinic. And I think that, that's the kind of individual that needs to read Matt Walker's book. At some point in my late 30s, I was like, well, just because I can do these things doesn't mean I should. And we're sort of praised and rewarded as doctors and residents because I could stay up all night when I was on call and be really functional the next day, come home to my young family and not sleep. All my friends, they would come home and they go right to sleep. I'd stay up because I haven't seen my kids in 48 hours. So the amount of sleep that I was operating on was, I mean, whenever we went to a dinner party, I would fall asleep. Like sometimes at the table, if like Stan's sitting there talking about his trip to the Virgin Islands, I'm out cold, and it was my wife saying, you're so embarrassing. You were clearly falling asleep when they were talking about their kids' rock collection or whatever. Like I can't help it. Like I'm massively, dangerously sleep deprived. I one time woke up in the middle of the road driving. Just the car was stopped, and I just woke up and I just slowly rolled to a stop. I hadn't braked. There was no break. Unfortunately, there was nobody on the road because it was a relatively non-traveled road. But I was like, oh my God, I just fell asleep and drifted to a stop. I mean, so again, this is not good. If you're doing that, you need to talk to somebody. But so we all go through it. So you're either stressed about not sleeping, or you're like, oh, I'll sleep later. As long as I get 2 hours on call, I'm good to go. No, you're not. So we all need to find our way to the middle.
Well, this has been fun, and I think it really did find my way to the middle here as well. It was very unexpected advice, both for the adult and for the child. I would highly recommend going. Where do you want people to buy your book, The Sleep Solution? You go like Amazon or
Sure. Yeah,
wherever?
you can buy it on Amazon, probably the easiest place. I think it's the cheapest you can find it. It's on Kindle if you like to do that kind of stuff. And if my voice doesn't irritate you, you can listen to it on Audible. Although the Sleep Solution has a lot of footnotes that were actually not included in the audio part of it. So I think to get the full effect, you probably need to read it. Although not everybody likes my humor. My disclaimer is the humor is not directed at people with sleep problems. The humor is trying to make you a bit more relaxed about the situation, not feeling like you're on your way to certain, heart attacks and dementia kind of thing. But I think to get the full effect of the Sleep Solution, you probably need to read it. And that's a very edited version of the draft that I originally wrote, which I would say 1 out of every 3 footnotes, the publisher was like, sorry, we're not publishing. You, as a physician, you cannot say that thing. So one of these days when I don't really care about stuff anymore, and I feel like I'm rapidly getting to that point, I'm going to somehow release the PDF of the director's cut of the Sleep Solution, which has all the jokes and references that were not fit for public consumption to be released. Because it's funny, I sort of insecure about my writing. People talk about writers, and I'm like, oh, I'd love to be a writer. I said that one time. And my wife's like, Chris, you've written 2 books. I'm like, yeah, but I mean like a real writer, like a writer, like a Tom Clancy, right, or whatever, John Grisham. But so every now and then I'll read my own book. Like I'll just pick it up and like pick a chapter and read it. And I'm tense reading it because my thought is, this is gonna suck. This is not gonna be a good read. And I read it, I'm like, oh, it's pretty good. And I'll laugh at something, but there are a couple jokes that I made in that original that were taken out. Then when I read it now, I still literally laugh out loud when I read it. But
Can you
anyway,
tell us one of the jokes?
I can. Yeah, I'll tell you one.
All right,
One
give us
of
one.
them was I was trying to explain to people that dopamine is a chemical in your brain. And depending on what you're talking, it can do all kinds of things. So the idea that dopamine or serotonin or acetaminophen does X is not true. Dopamine is a chemical that facilitates addiction if you're into that, depending on where it's signaling in the brain. Dopamine is also the chemical that is present that allows our movements to be smooth. When you see a patient who has Parkinson's, who's very stiff and shuffling around and whatnot, that's because they lack dopamine. So addiction, it can have to do with body movement. From a sleep perspective, dopamine tends to be very alerting. So when we take away dopamine, we tend to be sleepier. So a Parkinson's disease patient will shuffle into the room, sit down and fall asleep. It has to do with, dreaming and the way we move through different phases of sleep. If you have restless leg, you often have deficiencies in dopamine. So my point in when I was writing this one section of the book was dopamine has lots to do with different things related to sleep. And the footnote, and so I was saying that, it had to do with addiction and sleep and even sex and to some degree. And the footnote said, you want me to do what with that candy bar? And I was trying to because I was trying to incorporate candy and when eating and sex and some other things and addictive kinds of things or whatever. And they were like, "Oh no, you cannot put. You want me to do what with that candy bar?" And I, for some reason, whenever I read that little footnote, it just always cracks me up. But I am, yeah. Anyway,
We'll look forward to the Quentin Tarantino director's cut of The Sleep Solution at some point in the future.
It's your more elevated sleep crowd is probably going to be like, "Oh, this guy is such a redneck," which I am. My humor is probably not as elevated as one might think, but yeah, I live in the gutter.
Well, hey, they can let their wine breathe, and we'll have some fun with sleep.
That's right. That's good stuff. That's right.
Well, Dr. Chris Winter, thanks so much for being on the show. And I would encourage everybody not only to get the book, but you have the Sleep Unplugged podcast. I'm sure you can get it on Apple and
weekly
Spotify and all.
podcast. We have a lot of fun with that. We're closing in, and we're not where you are. We're closing in on our 200th episode, but it's a lot of fun. First episode of every month is always something to do with insomnia. Uh, we always last year we did a big pillow you're a betting guy, so we got 16 different pillow companies to send us their pillow last year, and we did a March Madness bracket of 16 pillows competing in what we called the Sleep Unplugged Pillow Fight. And we had a sponsor by this massive trophy. Last year, Coop won the trophy. And so this year we have 16 new pillows, all about, it's not really a competition. It's really about, hey, not only does your mattress make a big difference in terms of your sleep, but thoughtfully selecting a pillow. Whenever I lecture, I always ask people, what pillow do you use? Did you consciously choose the pillow that's on your bed that you slept with tonight? And do you know the brand of it? Nobody ever does. It's like, I don't know, I've been dragging this thing around since high school. I have no idea where it came from, who got it for me. So being thoughtful about that can really be helpful. So it's sort of like, here are 16 pillows maybe you haven't heard of. Here's what makes them all unique. And we'll have a fun competition. But it's really just about, think about your bed, think about your pillow, your bedding, what you wear at night. All these things, make a 1 to 2% difference in your sleep. And if you add up enough 1 to 2% changes in your sleep, you can 100% change your sleep.
I couldn't agree more. And there's actually a study that was done in the mattress industry about a trained retail sales associate fitting a customer for a pillow. And then the rest of the sample got to choose their own. And the increases in sleep were to the tune of 8 hours a month of better sleep by getting fitted for the proper pillow, which, was putting people in spinal alignment. So their neck being cranked up.
Yeah.
And so it makes a huge difference.
This is funny. As part of the judging for the pillow fight, I invited essentially my neighborhood to come over and have pizza and beer. And when you arrived at the party, you got a pillowcase. And so your job was you had a scorecard and your pillowcase. And so your job was to walk around and find all 16 pillows at some point in the evening, stick the pillow in your pillowcase, and then find a horizontal surface or a bed in the house and test it out and get your thoughts about it. And what was so fascinating about it is everybody was like, oh my God, I love that one pillow that I tried. Now, they were all different and people had different reasons for it, but nobody was like, oh, those are cool 16 pillows, but I really like the bag of old dead skin cells that I'm using in my place better than those. Everybody was sort of just kind of came like, I never knew that I could like a pillow the way I like that Coop or that Pluto pillow or that Layla, whatever the pillow, that. So it was really fun. And then what's really cool is I work for a bunch of sports teams here in Florida. And when I went to see the Toronto Blue Jays, who were in the World Series this year, I took all 16 pillows and shoved them in my car and took them up to their training facility in Dunedin. And when I gave my big lecture to all the players, I had them all laid out. I said, hey, before you leave, just come up here and look at these pillows and think about the pillow that you're using right now. And is there a pillow that you might like better, is more customizable, fits your massive body better than the one that your wife chose for you at Target or whatever? And so it's fun to kind of do those sort of things in fun and creative ways to make people understand that it matters. It really does. And when you love your pillow and you get excited about, oh, I get to get in bed tonight on that mattress that I love, under that sheets that I love, and the pillow that I love, like it just creates so much positive feeling about sleep. And sleep's all about being excited about it, not dreading it. It really is. It's always sad to me as a physician when somebody says, oh, I just dread going to sleep. I'm like, oh, it's like my favorite thing, and you dread it. Like, I dread pizza parties. Really? Like, are you kidding me? Because I'll do anything for free pizza. So anyway.
What's where can we find the bracket, by the way? Can we follow along somewhere this year?
You can, yeah. If you go to my Instagram page, it's Dr. Chris Winter. So like Dr. Chris Winter, Dr. Chris Winter. We'll also put it, we have a Sleep Unplugged web page, but go to my Instagram page, Dr. Chris Winter, and you can scroll down, just look around March of last year and you can see it. It's on there. We announced the pillows and the bracket on the same day the NCAA announces because they have a selection Sunday. Our podcast comes out on Sunday, so it sort of works out really well. And then we seed based upon pillow cost, which is a lot of fun because, when you got the 9 seed against the 1 seed, the 9 seed is cheaper than the 1 seed. And we've got some expensive pillows this year. So it's going to be really interesting to see, kind of what happens. But again, it's all in fun. And the judging is clearly like tongue in cheek, a bunch of drunk neighbors trying out pillows in Dr. Winter's house, all over, was part of it. And social media following was a variable in the judging algorithm. It's all kind of fun stuff like that. But
Well, we'll follow along. We'll link to
yeah,
it up on
follow
the fam
along.
too.
Yeah. See if you can get
We'll
a
share it.
perfect bracket.
Oh yeah. I love this. I love how you seed it too. You're going to take the Cheapo Depot versus the premium pillow.
Cheapo
and see how
Depot,
many
number
take out.
16 seed. They won their conference tournament, so they got in. Last year, it was funny. I wanted 16, but I got a 17th pillow. And so we had a play-in game. The 16 and 17 pillow played in, and somebody won, and then they immediately played the number 1 seed pillow. Which I
Do you
believe was
remember
Beg
where
Year
Coop
last
was
year.
seeded? Because Coop ended up
Coop
being
was
the top
low.
one.
Coop was low. Coop was like a 14 seed.
Wow. Comeback.
Not an expensive pillow. And I mean, it was really interesting. Let me tell you, the makeup of my neighborhood and the people who participated, they were all over the place. Young, old, male, female, like just there was young, there was nothing about them that was similar. And it was really surprising to me how well Coop did, because nobody was looking at anybody else's voting. And that pillow that they put in there, man, it was like so many people's number 1 and number 2. I couldn't believe it. I mean, it's a great pillow, but law of averages, you would have thought that, so it was really interesting to see what people sort of preferred. Now, it was a little bit of an unfair fight because a lot of these pillows are customizable. So if you got it and you're like, that's a little big for me, well, you can unzip it and take some of the fluff out and stuff like that. Now, we were not doing that at the party for obvious reasons, have stuff everywhere. So people were kind of testing out the pillow as it came, not as you could make it. There was one pillow called the Luxome Layer that had all kinds of customizable features in it, different things you could pull in, take out, add to, fill, different kinds of fillings. So, I mean, the scientific nature of the pillow right now is really incredible. Anyway, the second place pillow was Pluto, and that was a pillow that was designed for me. Like, I gave it all my measurements and it designed that pillow, and I entered it into the competition, even though it was designed for me, and it did pretty well. So it came in second, I think.
What was their tag? Is their tagline? It's not a planet, it's a pillow.
Is it? I love Pluto. I think they're hilarious. They make this crazy astronaut helmet sleep thing for an airplane, which I use all the time. It's like the Pluto Pod. It's
looking them up
so
right now.
awesome. Like, I pull
they
that
were on
thing
Shark
out,
Tank.
and you're like, I'm, going to do a spacewalk. I'll see you when we arrive in Dallas, Fort Worth, and you're out cold. But yeah, the Plutos are really, all of them are really cool. I mean, I like, you're a mattress industry guy. The pillow industry is sort of like a little bit more like, seems to me like a little more playful, a little bit more crazy in terms of, I think they can be versus, to me, like the high end, mattress it's a little bit more like Bentley, Jaguar, Porsche, and these people are like, oh, we got this crazy pillow that straps over your head, and their little Facebook ads are hilarious, and so anyway,
Should the mattress
I
people
dig it.
take some notes from the pillow people and like lighten it up a little bit?
Maybe, but I mean, I think you're trying to convey you're going to make one mattress purchase in your life, make it the best one. I don't know. Maybe I am certainly not a marketing person, but yeah, maybe that doesn't work as well for like, this is a crazy car. Like, I don't want a crazy car. I want a car that works and doesn't burst into flames if I run into something. So
Yeah, I
maybe
want to buy
there's
a house,
place
not
for
a fun
playfulness.
house.
Exactly. Maybe there's a place for playful and a place for not, and maybe pillow is, but mattress is not. I don't know.
I love it though. Well, thanks for sharing that. It's really fun. We're going to follow along. I want to see the bracket. I want to see, if you can share some behind the scenes. Hey, if you want me to be your drunk neighbor, I could probably help out with that.
Hey, listen, not too far from Arkansas. You come on over. I got pizza waiting for you, man, and a bunch of pillows. Got one today. They're coming in.
I love it. Well, that's going to be exciting for March Madness and very relevant.
That's right.
Dr. Chris Winter. Hey, it's been a joy. Like, you're a fun guy.
Man.
You're bringing the good word to people to help them live a better life and sleep better. And thanks for everything you're doing. Like, and thanks for chopping it up with us.
My pleasure. I appreciate you hanging in there with me, watching planes take off and land. That was sort of like, these cars were driving by. They're like, why is that guy just standing there in the field looking up in the sky? I'm like, it's Florida. It's what we do here in Florida. Crazy fun things like stand in the field and look in the sky.
Yeah, so, that's where the rockets go off. I mean,
that's where the rockets go off and come back down, apparently.
Well, hey, and can people find you online? Like, they can obviously check out the Sleep Unplugged podcast. You can just like Google that. And then you've got Dr.
Yeah,
Let's see.
Dr. Chris Winter, Instagram, Twitter, Blue Sky Threads. We have a YouTube page. So if you're kind of more into like visual content, I always post the video of me recording the podcast every week. So it's all that's just type in Sleep Unplugged into YouTube and you'll find our page, and all 189 videos are on there if you really want to see what's going on. And sometimes we, like every year right before Black Friday, we do fun gift ideas for your friends and family that are sleep themed. So that's a fun one to look at because I'm actually holding things and putting things on my head and stuff like that. But yeah, so Dr. Chris Winter, Sleep Unplugged podcast, YouTube page, Sleep Solution, Rested Child. That's more than enough.
Cool. And I'm
Way
excited
too
about the
much.
Black Friday stuff because I'm envisioning just what we talked about earlier, which is Dr. Chris Winter fully geared up, kitted up, getting ready to go
We
into
do.
battle with all the
It's
sleep
like
gadgets.
a pile of stuff, like tents you can sleep in and all kinds of fun. I love the Wild West nature of sleep right now. It's fun. I mean, there's something out there for everybody for sure.
Well, thanks so much for sharing your time, your talent, your wisdom, all the fun products you've been, experimenting with. And well, hopefully, like I said, we'll catch up here in the future. I'd love to have you back on the show. And if you enjoyed this, go to thefam.com, subscribe to the newsletter. Be sure to share this with a friend and a fam, and don't keep us a secret. We'll see you back here every Monday. Thanks again, Chris.
Awesome.